Welcome back to the garage, everybody. As you can see, there's a little bit of color on the front of the car now. If you haven't noticed, I'm kind of doing all the bodywork type stuff off camera just because it's very monotonous and repetitive. So you're kind of gonna see the car, gain some more aesthetic as we're working on the more involved stuff. On the last episode, you saw me run down to Portland to Scheel Seats, where we got to hang out with Toby and Nicole down there, and we got to see the warehouse, learn a little bit of history about the company, and of course, we got to pick up our brand new Scheel 101s. That's what we're gonna be working on for the first part of this video. We are going to be fitting the seats up in the cabin, working on driver position, get everything sorted out like that, because once that is all in place and we can get a dash in there, then we can start putting wiring in it, start plumbing fuel, because I want the driver position to be paramount. I want that first and foremost, so everything else is gonna kind of work around that. So first thing I'm gonna do is weld in some rails that I've been making for the floor of the car, and then we're gonna drill holes and mount up the first seat. So let's get to it. All right, so off camera, I worked on the first set of the rails that I'm gonna weld to the floor of the car. This is just some welded steel box tubing. Basically what I'm gonna do is I've radiused each end to match the tunnel and the body side. And we're gonna drop these in place, take our measurements, make sure they're all lined up, and then we're gonna weld them into place. Once that is done, I'm gonna take the seat rail, drop it on here with the measurements, center everything, and then we're gonna drill holes, weld in some captured nuts to the top of this stuff, and we're gonna have a place to bolt our Scheel seats to, and it's gonna be really, really cool. I'm really excited. So with the rails tacked in place, I just wanted to set the seat on top, see where the height was at, see what the angle felt like, and see where I would need to space out to level everything off. I gotta say with the mounts, I think I nailed the height. I sit with a good amount of room to get a helmet in the car, even with a cage to the side. The seats are a little bit larger due to the bolsters than like the stock Mustang seats would have been, so you do have pretty close proximity where the door would be. I did offset it towards the tunnel so that I could get a little bit more room and be close to the e-brake and the shifter. At this point, the column isn't mounted solid and it's not where it's gonna be, so the proximity of my legs is a lot tighter than what it's gonna end up at. So at this point, I needed to figure out how to actually bolt the seat rails and the seat itself to the mount. So I measured everything up, got the center points of where I need to put the holes, and I had ordered some M8 inserts that drop into place, and they have a flange on top. I think they're called T-nuts. Basically just carbon steel inserts that you can weld on top instead of having to recess and do all that stuff and capture a nut. It's a lot easier. So because I would be waiting until the next day for those, I decided to make the other side and get that all situated. So throughout the project, I've had the idea that whenever I can, I need to reach for the scraps that I have in the shop. So for the driver's side mounts, I used 1x2 welded steel tube. And on the passenger side, I only had enough 1.5 inch by 1 inch welded steel tube. So they're a little bit different side to side, but it's gonna do the same job. And honestly, this is gonna be overkill for seat mounts. They're not gonna move at all. There's gonna be no deflection in the mounts, which I made that mistake with the GC8. I used thin flat stock and really didn't reinforce it enough, and the seats do move quite a bit. So I'm hoping that these are gonna stay nice and solid. I did my best to get the angle measurements right so that everything lines up on the same planes and the seats lean back without too much binding on the bolts or anything like that. So while I was waiting on those M8 inserts for the seats to bolt them in, I turned my attention to making a dash bar. I had a length of 1/8 inch wall square tube sitting on the shelf. I had ordered it for making the chassis dolly, and it was just extra in case I screwed up a cut. So basically what I did is cut it to length, and then I decided that I was going to cut a relief in either end at equal length to make a slight lift or a bend in the bar itself. So I cut the reliefs and then just stuck a piece of tube in there, bent them down, and tacked them in with the TIG welder. I then went at it with the heavier filler rod and about 100 amps of current, and I gotta say, welding this heavier steel together is a lot easier than sheet metal or smaller tube parts. It was actually quite fun. This is where the episode gets a little bit spotty in terms of footage. I didn't film it, but I made some brackets to mount the dash bar in the car, and I welded them to the A-pillar. I drilled holes through the dash bar itself, and I welded captured nuts on the open ends so that I could stick a bolt through on either side and bolt it into the car. I thought about welding it, but I thought it would just be better if I could remove everything all as one piece. So after getting the dash bar roughed in, I turned my attention back to the seat mounts as my inserts had showed up. I drilled holes in all the mounts, dropped the inserts into place. You can see they have a flange on top like I was explaining, and you can just weld around that flange and you have a spot to mount whatever you're putting on. I mocked up the seat rails to make sure that the holes would line up and that everything was pretty close, and if I had to waller them out a little bit, not the end of the world. I tacked the inserts into place. Been having trouble with the TIG welder lately. It's been throwing a lot of sparks and contaminating really easy. I did clean this stuff a lot, so I'm thinking I have a gas flow problem. I think my regulator might be a bit fried. Eventually, turning up the output on the torch, I was able to get it to calm down. So I welded all the inserts in place. While the welds were cooling, I pulled the 101s out of my storage area, put them on the bench, and got the rails mounted up. They're fairly easy. All the inserts and everything is really high quality on these seats. I'm really astounded with the quality, the absolute quality that these things have. It's unreal. I'm not gonna lie, I was super excited to bolt these things in for the first time and have them solid in the car and get a feeling of what it would actually be like to sit in this thing properly going down the road. The only hardware I could find at the auto parts store was some bare steel M8 hex nuts. So I just blued them with the torch and some motor oil and then dropped them into place. The first time sitting in this thing and being able to slide it on the rails and on the mounts and everything felt really good. In terms of driving position, I think I've got it pretty nailed. Some slight foreshadowing later into the episode when we put the column in this thing, it actually lines up perfect. The column where it is right now in this shot sits a little bit lower than where it actually ends up. Passenger side was just rinse and repeat, drop it in place, bolt it up, and we're good to go. Eventually I would end up leveling out. It was a little bit low on the outer sides of the mounts, so I threw in some spacers to level the seats out and bring them back towards the center a little bit.
I do want to take a moment out to once again thank Scheel USA for partnering with me on the 68 Mustang build. I am super happy with these 101s. They definitely are going to complete the look of the car in a huge way. And I wanted to make sure that I had them absolutely set up in the perfect position for long drives, for track duty, for everything. As somebody who loves driving, I just wanted to have a great place, if not the perfect place to sit.
All right, guys, it's been a crazy few days in the shop. Last you saw, we got the seats mounted in. So I got the rails all fabricated, got the M8 inserts all welded in there with the TIG, and I got the dash bar going. I welded up this cage here to get the pedal mount connected to, and I've already burned my fingers on it twice doing that. It's pretty good because it is a bolt-in affair. I'm trying to make the minimal amount of bolts and nuts to get this all out if I have to. So far we've got 4, and I'll probably have a couple more going to like a center console or something later on. The next thing I'm working on is, because I have this cage here, I'm going to use a longer bolt through the steering column mount with a nut on the back of the cage, so the threads in this mount will catch the steering column side, and then we'll just put a nut over top, and that'll cinch everything together and keep it all strong to the dash bar. And now I'm working on the mount for the steering column itself. I put the steering column in the car because it's the only clean place to show you guys, but the shop is an absolute disaster right now. Anyway, this is a Flaming River tilt column for a Cougar or a Mustang. Comes with the provisions to wire everything up, and it's got a tilt lever and the cam for your signals and everything, so it's good to go. This is bare steel. It's ready to be welded to, which is pretty cool, so I made a mount for it. So basically I have this mount here, and what I did is I put 2 of these together in the vise and then ramrodded the hole saw through the seam of them. And this is what I'm left with, a nice piece of box tubing that I can TIG weld to the tube of the steering column. And check this out, this is pretty satisfying. Look how nice this fits. Oh, that's like perfect fit. So basically I'm gonna put the steering column in where I want it, and then locate this on whatever angle with the levers and everything, which these will probably stick to the passenger side. And then once I have everything sort of mocked up where I want it, we'll tack this in place, pull it back out of the car, and then we'll TIG weld it just because I want it to be colder and not have big boogers on it. And then drill the mounts drill the holes for the bolts to go through. I'm just gonna run the bolts through the tube. It shouldn't have that much stress on it, so I don't think I need to sleeve it. I'm just gonna drill both sides. We'll run big long bolts through there. It should be good to go. So this was basically gonna kind of hang like so. The column will hang off of it, and I'll just bolt up to there and sandwich this whole deal together. Nice and simple. So like I said, 2 bolts there, 1 bolt on either side, unplug everything, dash comes out. So trying to make everything fairly serviceable and simple. So I'm gonna work on getting this all together and mocked up, and then hopefully get it in the car maybe tonight. We'll see. I also have to go and get hardware for it.
So getting everything mocked up was pretty straightforward. I drilled the holes in the mount and bolted it to where the dash bar meets the pedal mount. I clamped the column into it so it was nice and tight, and then positioned it fore and aft so that I have good reach to the wheel. I threw a couple quick tacks on the mount to the steering column itself so that nothing would move, and I could unbolt everything and then take it over to the bench and finish welding it. With the welding on the steering column complete, I left it on the bench to cool overnight. I then turned my attention to getting some mounts made for the heater box. This is a Meridyne heater box that I got from Summit. Saves a lot of space, a lot of weight, and is fairly straightforward to mount. I just made some box tube mounts that I could drop the brackets off from the cowl and bolt the box to. Super simple. The next bit of fabrication I turned to was the dashboard itself. I wanted to have an aluminum flat face dashboard with rivets just to give it that aircraft styling, because let's face it, who didn't want to be a fighter pilot when they were a kid? I grew up watching documentaries and reading about old warbirds, so this kind of thing really hits home to me. It really is a stylistic aspect that I wanted in the car, and I do plan on making some more parts to match. After hand cranking 100 rivets into this thing, my fingers were pretty toast, but I was really happy with how it all turned out.
I was keeping all the bodywork off camera, but I found something. I'll show you guys. All cracked in there. So this is the back side of where they welded in those big block support plates. Big block support plates. It's cracked along here. Small little hairline in there. That's pretty bad. Driver's side. This is the back of the reinforcement plate that they welded in. Just hammered and gooped. Cracked down there. Cracked along here. And down there. I'm not gonna lie, after seeing the cracks in the shock towers, I was pretty dejected, and I was trying to decide what to do. I was at a bit of a crossroads because it was just weld them up and make it good enough for now, or start all over again, tear it all apart, and make it all 100% correct. In this case, for where the car is at and what I want to do with it right now, this is the correct way to fix it. Aside from not turning on my welding helmet, everything went pretty smoothly. I drilled out the ends of the cracks and got some hot welds in there to close them all up. And then I got some thin plate to punch into place and cover it all up. Welded up the cracks on this side and the other side this morning. I don't have any plate that I can put over this yet, so I gotta run out and grab like some 14 or 16 gauge. And I'm just literally gonna form it in there. I'll round it. I'll form it around a piece of tube I have, and then I'm gonna push it in there, and I'll weld probably right along here, right along there, and then probably do some spots down the middle. To reinforce the tower this way a little bit, I got some angle iron that I cut recess for to clear the bolts that go to the subframe. I'm just gonna zap along here and along here, and that's gonna help give the shock tower a little bit more rigidity, stop it from flexing back and forth. Anyway.
The next big order of business was to get the motor back in the car. I needed to have it in place to modify the motor mounts, position it exactly where I want it, and then get the transmission bolted up so that I could start modifying the tunnel, as I knew it would need to be cut open to get everything to clear. One thing that I've been trying to aim for with this car, and one thing I'm actually super stoked on, is how serviceable I've been able to keep everything. Dropping the motor in and out is really straightforward. It only takes about 10 minutes to get it into place, pop the motor mounts on. It is brain dead simple. Everything is all the same grade 8 hardware, and there's lots of clearance everywhere to get at all the bolts. I wanted to carry that forward with the transmission. That's why I'm doing the difficult task of sliding it over the chassis dolly, up the tunnel, and trying to get it bolted up the engine to make room for everything and make it easy to remove or put in, because let's face it, probably gonna come in and out of this car a few times, especially being a BMW 5-speed. They are fragile.
All right, the first thing I'm doing today is I'm gonna cut the motor mounts that I made. They're gonna be a bit too tall. So what I'm gonna try and do is move the engine down almost an inch and then forward about 3/4 of an inch. There's 2 mount holes on the subframe that I can drill the other one out. Move the motor forward a little bit. We won't move too much. We won't lose anything to the radiator or anything like that. We're good for clearance there. And then I think dropping it down and moving it forward will help to not have to cut the tunnel. So this is the easier of the 2 steps, and if it still hits, then we have to clearance less, which is, the less cutting the better in this case. So I'm going to mark and tape off about an inch I'm gonna cut just right through the polyurethane and everything, and we'll just stick a washer over where we cut. I'm gonna pull the sleeve out too, so I don't have to cut the sleeve inside of the bushing, because that'll just nuke it. So yeah, gonna cut these, and then we're gonna take them back over the engine bay and drop the motor back on and see where it sits.
So one thing that I forgot when I did cut the motor mounts is that when I drop the motor down, the bolts are on an angle, and that's going to splay out the ears that the motor mounts connect to on the engine. So basically I had to just drop the engine down as low as it would sit on the bolts without breaking them or bending them, and then get the mounts to seat up underneath that. It's kind of a game of like averages where you have to put it where it's happy and then build up the mount underneath. So I have to revisit that because I have to get more bushings and more steel to make it happen. But the motor was sitting where it would be level and where I want it. I did also move it forward. So from there I moved cutting open the tunnel. I had tried to lift the transmission into place, but it just was hitting and interfering quite a bit. So just decided to say, fuck it, I'm gonna cut it right open.
Making some templates. All right, guys. Transmission and engine are bolted together in the car. I know this feels like a bit of a repeat of prior episode where I had the motor in here, but this is a big step because I now have clearance for everything, all the major components. The shifter, got it somewhat mounted where I want to have it. I might move it back a bit. I have to actually cut the tunnel actually out to here anyways, because I can't have the old shifter plate in here. It's a double plate underneath, and I also have to reinforce where this one is mounted. So, and it's probably gonna end up cutting it all the way back, and then I'll just make something flat and new, because this is actually on an angle. The plate is on an angle itself, which I could leave it there and extend the rod, and that would bring the shifter straight up and down. But I mean, I'm actually kind of cool with it. Looks kind of neat like this. Like I said, transmission is mounted. It's got the right offset to meet up with the differential, although you do want to have a little bit more offset. According to like the way the car is engineered and everything, they actually build in pinion offset into the cars for clearance in the tunnel and everything, and the way that it acts when you put it under torque. I'm pretty stoked. This is, I mean, this is all looking good. I have to go grab a lower transmission cross member and build the mounts for the 5-speed off of that. And it's kind of cool because it'll bolt up like a Mustang transmission. It's just gonna have the angled offset transmission mounts connected to it for the 5-speed here, the Getrag 5-speed. All the bolts and everything on the trans I have good access to, although I might need to make one access hole for the top one. That one's pretty tight to where the tunnel is. I'm gonna see once I make my new cover here where everything lines up, and kind of go from there. I'm gonna cut the episode here. I know this is a bunch of like odds and ends and weird things going on, but this is all the nitpicky stuff that you have to go through in order to get these things together for all the parts to start falling into place. So I'm getting really excited. Everything is looking really good. I'm super stoked about my Scheelman seats. I cannot thank Toby and Nicole enough once again for helping me out with the build and getting me those seats in the car. And I can't wait to be slamming gears, sitting in those things in this car. I have less than 20 days to leave for Overcrest. I'm gonna keep working, put my head down, and just jam away on this thing, and hopefully we get it on the road. That's all I can say. So next episode, we're gonna hopefully fire it up. It's weird to say that, but I hope it happens. So I'm gonna get out of here. I have to go get metal and everything and continue working today, but you will see that in the next episode. As always, guys, please be kind, drive hard. I'll see you on the road.